because we are having a conversation that I think is going to touch something deep in a lot of hearts watching. There's this verse in Matthew where Jesus says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, I will give you rest." And I think about how many mothers hear these words and they believe them and they pray them, and yet their bodies never seem to get the memo. So they look fine on the outside. They're capable, they're managing, they're showing up, but inside, this is a constant hum of tension. So there's this low grade anxiety that never quite goes away. They're always braced for the next thing, always on the edge, and always, this is what we call survival mode. And here's what's hard. They've done therapy. Some of them have done therapy. Some, they've done inner work. They've prayed, they've confessed, they've asked God to take their anxiety, but their nervous system is still stuck in a pattern that their mind moved past a long time ago. So, what happens when mothers actually heal? And not just mentally or spiritually, but in their bodies. And what does it look like to integrate faith, physiology, and the deep work of the nervous system restoration? And today, I'm talking with Brigid Tebaldi. She's a wife, a mother of 5 living on a farm. Is so cool. And someone who knows firsthand what it's like to carry trauma in your body long after you've thought you've moved from it. And after her own birth trauma, she discovered the true that true healing required more than just prayer or positive thinking. It required addressing the way her nervous system was literally wired to stay on high alert. And now, as a board certified women's health coach and trauma informed birth companion, she helps ambitious, faith driven women stop white knuckling their way through motherhood and start living from a place of peace and presence. This conversation is about what's possible when we stop just surviving and start actually healing our mind, body, and soul. So let's welcome Brigid.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So I know I did a bit of introduction. Do you want to say something about yourself that I didn't mention?
I think that you covered everything. So yeah, we live on a farm in Pennsylvania. It's very cold right now, and I have 5 little kids, and we're in the middle of winter, so they are going kind of stir crazy. And so yeah, they should all be pretty contained during this, but you never know if one might pop in and make
Mhm.
themselves known. So appreciate
Yeah,
all the grace and charity regarding that.
yeah, that's part of motherhood, right?
It is, yes.
All right. So I'm going to start with, asking you about the moment that when you realized your birth trauma wasn't just about birth itself. And what was that awakening like?
Yeah, so I think that it was just to back up a little bit. There, I knew that something was wrong, but I didn't do anything about it for almost 2 years, honestly, and even after that, it was a little bit longer. And I think that part of it was that I didn't want to address the fact that I could have potentially have done something to have changed the outcome of it, and so there was some like denial and regret there as well. And so
Mhm.
the thing that actually led me to understand what was at the root going on, that it was related to my birth, is it's so silly, but it was around Christmas, and I've always been somewhat of a tomboy, and I don't necessarily care too much about my looks or what I wear or anything like that. And there was somebody in my family who basically said, like, why are you wearing that? It doesn't look good. And I just like had it. I was like, I'm over this, like tired of people making comments about me and me not feeling okay to say anything back, because again, sometimes what they were saying is not charitable, and I just was like, I'm over this. And when I started doing a lot of the processing work myself, I realized that this also showed up in my births and my entry into motherhood. And now with my second, I did have a very traumatic birth that ended, well, I guess the birth itself was okay, but I had about 6 hours later a hemorrhage, and then never processed it and was basically told, like, you don't want to know what happened. And so so that was really my entry into this, where it was like, and this is what I see with a lot of my clients, is that they know that the birth revealed something, but they don't even know what it was. But what it does, it's really a window into all of this stuff that you've brought from childhood and your adulthood. And it really is this opportunity to reflect back on what you have been through, maybe the people pleasing tendencies, maybe the not wanting to speak up, kind of staying in the background so that you don't take up space, things like that. So that was really my I guess kickstart into this was again about clothes of all things.
Well, it's good because it's God, like hinting to you, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was in the infertility space initially when I started my online health coaching, and it's you know like it's good that we want to have kids, and then we work so hard to get pregnant and have kids, and then the kids come in and it's all about the children. I
Hmm.
mean, which is good, but then the mom. So like
Yeah.
like in helping the mom with fertility, we I'm a big proponent of like helping the mom become healthy,
Hmm.
because you need a healthy mom, you need a healthy body. So whatever route you take, hopefully you get pregnant naturally, then your body is ready. And then,
Yeah.
with the birth, I feel like once we get to that point, it's kids, kids, kids. What about the mom? So I'm really grateful that you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. There is. I was actually just talking with another a friend who also owns another business, and we were saying about how like sometimes how important it is for us to take time for ourselves, because that's whenever we can actually show up and be better for our kids. And
Yeah.
so a lot of times that can be like, even if it's just taking an hour to read a book, or in this particular case she is building a business, and she was like, I took an afternoon at a coffee shop, and like initially I had some guilt around it, but then I actually came home and I was excited to see my kids, and like we sat on the floor and played games, and she was like, and the guilt went away. And I think that that's something really important to remember, is that we can kind of get sucked into this, like you have to be on all this, like every single second of the day, like always with them, always doing everything with them, which is beautiful, but for a lot of women that's not something that they can do all the time, because that's really 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 hard on your system to always be on. And so
Hmm.
by taking that time for yourself, that really allows you to kind of recharge and also remember who you are as a woman, not just as a mother, but as a woman, which is important for your marriage and other relationships as well. And then again, you go home, or like you see your kids and you're excited to see them. It's not like this, oh, I'm just waiting until I get to bedtime and they fall asleep. And so just remembering that it's like that it's not bad to remember who you are. Like to remember who
Hmm.
Brigid was before Brigid became a mom isn't a bad thing,
Exactly.
as long as it's rightly ordered.
I love that. It takes us away from this space of functioning because of the guilt versus, our cup is full and then we're
Hmm.
like giving. I mean, it's good if our cup is like overflowing. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. But you cannot give if your cup is empty.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that. So you're raising 5 kids on a farm. So while doing this healing work, how does that reality differ from like or informing what you teach other mothers?
Yeah. And so we homeschool too. So they're younger. So there's 9, 7, 5, 3, and 1. So we have a lot going on all the time. And it really does actually align very well with what it is that I teach, because again, I get a lot of women around birth trauma, but then I get a lot of moms who maybe are entrepreneurs and building businesses at home, or are stay-at-home moms and just feeling like really burnt out. And really, we always go back to just the key foundational pieces, because a lot of them come to me after trying therapy, after trying dietitians, like all these different things. And maybe they have a little success here or there, but it's nothing too crazy and they're still struggling. And we really go back to the basics, which can be really boring, honestly. And you're like, this can't possibly help. But we work first on forgiving yourself for anything that you may have done wrong, again, especially around birth, but motherhood, whatever. Not that you did anything wrong, but how you perceive what you have done wrong. We work on forgiving others, because again, whenever we store this resentment or this like shame or guilt or anger towards others or ourselves or God, even, that is going to affect us physically. And so we
Hmm.
have to get rid of these emotions and change how our body perceives situations, so that we can actually heal from a physiological perspective. And so again, we really work on that portion of it first, and then we finally get into more of the fun stuff, which is like the diet, the nutrition, the exercise, things like that. But even with that, we keep it super simple. Like, we don't have to do anything crazy, because honestly, a lot of times, if you can balance, okay, so everybody talks about like sex hormones and stress, right? But what we don't talk a lot about is joy, and how dopamine and oxytocin actually are part of the pathway that control cortisol, which is the stress hormone, which cortisol then controls the sex hormones. And so if your cortisol is messed up, yes, that's pretty evident because you're stressed out a lot, and that will affect progesterone, estrogen, etc. But what a lot of people don't think about, or rather they only think about controlling stress, when in reality we need to add in the dopamine and the oxytocin in order to actually control the stress. So not to say that like stress reduction practices aren't important, but one of my daily 5 that I have clients do is like a dance party, or laughing, or things like that, because that is what actually starts to move the needle and shows your body and your brain that you are safe, that you can be joyful. And that actually works into all of the identity work as well, where it's like that it's okay to laugh, that you are a child of God, so you can feel safe. So it's really all connected. God created us so beautifully.
Yeah, and I love that you said joy, like instead of happiness. It seems like, because happiness it's temporary, it's shallow, but joy is like it comes from within, and it comes from God.
It's not related to the circumstance. It's an
Exactly.
internal posture of being. So
Exactly. I love that. So what does obsessed with Jesus actually look like in your day-to-day life? Especially when you're also dealing with, the changes in motherhood.
Yeah, and this is, I wish I could say that I was perfect, but I am absolutely by no means perfect. So I even tell this to clients where it's like, I tell this to clients where I'm like, I'm telling you this, but like I also still struggle with it. And that's okay, because I'm not supposed to be like this perfect person. Only Jesus was. And so just, that's like the first thing, is to remember that even quote unquote like experts aren't actually like experts in everything. There's always something that can be refined and learned. So that's one of the biggest things. As far as like really, actually I forgot the question as I went on that tangent. Can you repeat the question?
Being obsessed with Jesus.
That's right. Okay. And so that is one of the biggest things, is just living out everything that you do with him in mind. Like literally everything. And so it doesn't have to be that you're this perfect pious person all the time, but just having that intention to do everything with the posture of surrender and receptivity is the most important thing. So in the morning, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like if it is that you can light a candle and sit in silence for an hour, that's beautiful. But for me, that's not really realistic, because as soon as I wake up, everybody seems to wake up. And so for like, that just looks like me saying a simple daily offering prayer. And then that looks like me making breakfast, mostly happily most of the time. And then that looks like us saying prayers. And again, just doing everything with the intention of how are we being kind humans, and how are we helping each other get to heaven. And again, I think God just wants the intention behind it. He doesn't need the perfection. He just wants you to try. And even just like, I always give the analogy of, just think about little kids. Like they want to help you set the table, and maybe they're holding like the water glass and the water spilled like everywhere, but it's so cute watching them like carry it over and like be so proud of themselves and setting it down. And I just think like God is just happy with any amount of us trying and just living out our faith as best we can.
Yeah, it comes back to that parable, like when this really rich man was offering, he gave a lot to the temple. And then there's this widow who can only give like, a few cents. But that meant more to God, because that was coming from her heart.
Yeah. Yeah. That is true. And just even like little things, like I have a rosary out right beside me. I have an Edith Stein quote on my phone. Like I have a Mother Teresa quote on my water bottle. I'm wearing a sweatshirt that says Domine non sum dignos. Like just little things like that are also really good reminders. So that like we try to set up our house so that kind of we have crucifixes in every room. There's rosaries, there's physical reminders so that
Mm-hmm.
we remember what it is that we're striving towards, not just
Mm-hmm.
like looking holy, but actually attempting our best to
Yes.
be holy and to be, again, kind people. I
Mm-hmm.
think is really what that means for me. And I just love listening to podcasts and reading books and things like that about it too. So, and Christian music, like we play it. Yeah. So that's kind of it
Uh-huh.
too.
I love it. I love it. It's really, living it versus like being superficial and just showing.
Yeah.
Isn't it like the Benedictines, their mantra is like when you like pray while you're working.
Yeah. Ora et labora.
Yeah.
Yes. Pray and work.
Yeah. So yeah,
And
so you
that's
offer like your work as a
literally
prayer.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So what's the difference between healing your mind and healing your nervous system?
It's kind of a loaded question. So, just a little bit of background from a physiological perspective. Your brain is about 80% fat. And so, we cannot look at the mind simply just from a like talking perspective. Because if we just try to like talk out our trauma or talk about what happened, that is negating the physical side of us that God also
Mhm.
created. And so we really have to remember that, again, we are physical bodies as much as we are a spiritual soul. And so, again, the brain is 80% fat, roughly. And so we have to remember, what are we eating? Because that is going to affect our mental health, especially because I forget the exact percentage, but a percentage of your neurotransmitters are created in your gut. And so if you're not eating well, then that's going to affect your mental health. And
Mhm.
so I think that's the biggest thing is it's all connected, but really, um, it our brains need to be healthy in order for everything else to work properly.
Mhm.
And then from there, that with the nervous system is, I'm not going to get too much into it. If you remember your anatomy from like high school, you might remember words like sympathetic, parasympathetic,
Mhm.
autonomic. So you can go in on that on your own. But essentially, our nervous system is nerves and is our ability to take in our surroundings. And so, right now, even as you're listening to this, your nervous system is sending signals to your brain. And those signals, the main purpose of them is to try to determine safety. And so, right now, your subconscious is looking around and saying, "Is everything safe right now? Like, what's going to happen?" If you feel safe, then you're going to move into a state of your nervous system that is calm, that you can rest, your body is digesting food, you can take
Mhm.
deep breaths, things like that. If right now though your subconscious is saying like something dangerous is happening, and there's the old like the example of the lion or the bear chasing you, but it could
Mhm.
simply just be like, maybe you are hearing something outside that is really disturbing. Maybe your
Mhm.
baby is crying. Maybe you are just distracted by the massive to-do list that's going on, because again, your body
Mhm.
can't tell the difference. And
Yeah.
so right now, again, your subconscious is just taking in information and then sending it to the brain. And
Mhm.
again, depending on the type of nervous system state that you're in, it's either going to move into that primal brain, which is going to be the one that's like the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, where
Mhm.
you're either going to be moving into, what do I need to do in order to escape the situation? And that can look different for different people. So, again, if you have a massive to do list, some people are like, I don't even want to look at it. I can't figure out what to do first. I'm not even going to do it.
The
And then
check
move
in.
forwarding from there. Or some people are like, I'm going to do 100 different projects, but none of them are on my to do list. So, it
Yeah.
really just looks different for different people depending on which state they're in. Or if you're in the rest and digest and you look at your to do list and you say, logically, I'm going to think this through. And so, again, the primal part of our brain tries to figure out how to keep us safe from the to do list.
Mhm.
If, though, we are in that rest and digest state, the prefrontal cortex, so like the front part of your brain, turns on and says, again, logic. What can I do to make this to do list get like cross things off? And it will start to plan and to think about it, and it doesn't feel stressful. It just feels like this is what I need to do, so I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're really connected in terms of the nervous system and the brain, but they are still distinct and separate. So again, the brain has to be healthy enough to process what the nervous system sends it, and then the nervous system has to be healthy enough to be able to move through the different stages of, um, again, oh my goodness, regularity,
Mm-hmm.
where it's not normal for us to stay in rest and digest for 100% of the time, just
Mm-hmm.
like it's not normal for us to be in
Yep.
flight, freeze, or fawn 100% of the time.
Uh-huh.
It's really, can we move up and down the ladder of the nervous system regulation?
Yeah.
And so, and if you can, then that means you have a healthy functioning nervous system. If you cannot, that means that there's dysregulation, which is then going to cause your brain to always be like spinning and trying to figure things out,
Mm-hmm.
which then causes everything else downstream as well.
Yeah, so totally agree. It's like when you were saying all those things, I was thinking of an engine, right? So you have like the
Yeah,
physical parts of an engine, but then like nothing's like it's there until like you turn on the key and then all the electrical signals start firing. And then depending on the condition of your engine, the I don't know why I'm talking about cars all of a sudden.
I don't know anything about engines, so I'm just like, yeah.
I don't either, but like when you were talking, I was just imagining an engine. So like
Well,
you
the
put
other,
gas in your car and then it runs properly. But at the
yeah,
same time, if the brake is always on and you step on the gas, you're not going anywhere.
that's very true. Yeah. And the other way to think of it too is it's very similar to your immune system, where again, like your immune system has it's a beautiful role, but sometimes your immune system can get like really chaotic and like go haywire. And
Mhm.
that's again the autoimmune diseases, or that's the inability to stay healthy because your immune system is so suppressed. And so it's because again, we don't want to live in this vacuum where we have no illnesses, because that's good for us to be challenged a little bit, but we don't want to be in this state of such dysregulation that our immune system can't work properly in either
They're
direction.
working too much.
Yeah, exactly. And so again, if you're like kind of confused about the nervous system, just think about it from an immune standpoint as well, because again, that's very similar to how things work.
Yeah, because our bodies, God created our bodies to be protective. So if
Yeah.
it senses that you're in danger, of course, the first order of business is to protect and to stay alive. It's not going
Mhm.
to want to digest. It's not going to
Exactly.
want to ovulate.
Reproduce. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, and then like you're right, it doesn't differentiate whether it's a bear chasing you like to the
Nope.
brain. It's like we're in danger, but the danger could be just like a to-do list or oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I have like so many appointments and I double booked myself and I have to study for this and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um yeah, so with that, so like walk us through what white knuckling motherhood looks like and what are the signs that someone is doing this?
All right.
You
So
like
this
the
is kind of,
questions?
yeah, this is a loaded question. And this is going to look different for everybody. But basically,
Mhm.
white knuckling your way through motherhood can look like snapping at your kids. It can look like binge eating. It can look like not being able to take a deep breath during the day. It can look like you are so excited for bedtime because you just like can't handle one more minute of it. It can look like issues with your spouse. It can look like you don't find joy anymore in anything. You don't even remember who you are. Your body looks totally different and you're like you hate
You
it
don't
and you feel
recognize
awful
yourself.
about it. Yeah, exactly. So again, it's going to look a little bit different for every single person, but those are kind of like the big things that you'll see. Um, some more subtle things would be like that maybe you just feel off. Like you can't name it. Nothing's like wrong. Everything's fine, but like it's not really fine. And so you might be trying to do the different diets, or you might be trying to um, like go to certain workouts and like do things like that. But nothing really like fills that void that you're feeling. And again, nothing's wrong. Like you have a beautiful life. Your kids are healthy. Like your husband's great. Like you are fine, but you just don't feel fine. And so
Mhm.
that's the biggest thing is like if you're just really finding that you're not able to laugh every day, but like you're not depressed and
Mhm.
you're not able to feel strong even though you're working out. And so it really is like it's again this intention and this posture of receptivity versus again just like plowing through until bedtime and then crashing or scrolling on your phone or things like that.
Yeah, so like this is where like this is I'm really excited about this next question and it like when you're saying that you don't know like you're doing everything right, but still it's like there's something missing. There's a small, I want to say small component, but it's really like a big component. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
your painting when it's in pain, it affects everything.
Mm-hmm.
So like how do you blend Catholic spirituality? Because I really do believe that you can do all the right things, you can eat all the right foods, you can pay for all these expensive things, but if spirituality and faith is missing,
Mm-hmm.
that's let's go back to basics. So how do you blend Catholic spirituality with the nervous system science?
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is just to remember God created us with a physical body, right? Like in his image and likeness. And so therefore we have this body, and he created every single system, every single neurotransmitter, like he created every single bit of it. And so if we forget that, then nothing else is going to matter, because again, he created it, and we are not just this like random spontaneous thing. The other really big thing to remember is that you can be doing every single thing right and still things aren't going well, or still things go awry. And the reason for that is we might never know the reason for it, but it's all according to his plan. I actually just did my own podcast about this week, where I discussed about how, excuse me, God's presence, like gifts, don't necessarily show up the way that we think that they might. And so, for example, a gift from God might show up in a really terrible package. And that can look like, again, with birth trauma, that can look like with an illness, with a death, with job loss, whatever. And in the moment, we're like, this is terrible. Like, God, why did you do this to us? Or like even infertility, say, let's talk about that one. Like, you're like, God, why? Like, you designed us to have children. I'm doing everything right. The labs look good. I'm eating well. Everything is okay. But like, why are you not giving me a child? And we have to remember that, again, God is going to use this gift that doesn't feel like a gift right now, but he's going to use this gift of infertility. And I even feel bad saying that, because like it comes off in such a bad way. And I don't mean the gift of infertility, but like he uses this gift, and it's a like horribly wrapped gift. It's awful. But by opening up that gift and like going through the layers and like ripping off the tape, even though it's impossible and it like you just want to take a knife to it and like rip it apart, but by actually going through and peeling off those layers, that in and of itself, that work is part of the gift. And then you finally open up the gift, and it might lead to a child, or it might lead to not having a child, but maybe understanding like this is part of his plan, and I hate it, but this is part of his plan. And ultimately, this opening up this gift has led me closer to him. And I'm really mad at him still. And I like hate this part, but it has led me closer to him and closer towards sanctification. And so again, remembering that, again, God doesn't necessarily want bad things to happen, but he's going to use every single bad thing or hard thing in order to get you closer to him. And again, even just saying some of these things, I'm like, that sounds so terrible. And I promise you that's not what I mean. But like that is the reality of it, is that again, God is going to use every single thing for your good. And when you can understand that about him, it doesn't make it easier. Again, you can be really mad at God. You can be angry with him. You can be mad, but it makes you understand why he's allowing this. And then from, again, just the biological perspective, again, he made us in his likeness, and so therefore we have good bodies, even if they don't work so well all the time. Like ultimately his design is good, and it's our fallen nature that causes everything else to happen. So
Yeah, so this reminds me. So I listen to Bible in a Year when
yeah.
after I drop off my kids. So there's this day when the topic was David. When his brothers like did what they did to him, and he ended up like in such a really bad place.
Yeah.
So So yeah, he could have potentially, he could have hated God. Like, why did you do this to me? Um,
Mm,
so like what Father Mike had said in the end was God has the ability to turn something really bad, really awful into something beautiful.
yeah. Yeah.
So some might see anxiety as a lack of faith. So how do you respond to that?
Well, I mean, this is a complex issue, and I am not functioning from a licensed therapist standpoint, so I don't get into that realm. But the way that I see anxiety is really that it's not a lack of faith necessarily.
Hmm.
It's there's something going on in the body that's affecting the mind
Hmm.
that is being projected onto God as a lack of faith. When in reality, sometimes the anxiety is because you didn't sleep well, or
Hmm.
because you have this fear or this wound that still needs to be addressed. And it could
Hmm.
be something that's recent, it could be something from childhood, it could be that, again, your gut health is out of balance. It could be that you're not eating enough protein and fats. And so your brain is literally suffering
Hmm.
from not having enough nutrients, or
Yeah.
because our brain uses a ton of sugar. Like, it uses so much in order to keep it going. And if you're
Uh-huh.
not eating well, then that can manifest as anxiety. So instead of immediately jumping to like, it's a lack of faith,
Hmm.
get curious and be like, maybe what is the physical side of this? And
Hmm.
not to say that there aren't times whenever women or men do need extra support with, especially if it's like super crippling anxiety. But again, more often than not, and I've seen this with my own clients, it's they need to drink more water. They need to eat more or differently. They need to get outside and see the sun and move their body. Maybe do
Hmm.
some lymphatic drainage, like things like that. They need to ultimately, they really need to offer up all that they're suffering with to God, and
Yeah.
then trusting that He will use that for His good. And so again, coming at it not from the therapy side of standpoint, but really
Uh-huh.
coming at it from like the, you can heal a lot with basic sleep, diet, hydration, and movement. And so
Yeah,
not
and like
overcomplicating it.
yeah, and like gathering data too. Like I agree with you. Don't just jump into like lack of faith. I work with a lot of perimenopausal women, and then what I hear from
Yeah.
them is, "Hey, I am not an anxious person. All of a sudden, I'm
Yeah.
anxious about everything. I can't sleep, and then like I'm scared of this and this and this and that." But what I also hear from them was they are just being labeled as, "Oh, you're depressed, you're anxious,"
Yes.
but no one tested their hormones.
Or
So,
you're, yeah. Even
so
just being
here,
labeled perimenopausal can be an anxiety in and of itself, because they're like, oh, but we know what's coming. Like,
yes, exactly. But then no one like even takes care of the perimenopausal like symptoms or testing their hormones. So yeah, so like let's go back to basics here. Let's gather the data. Let's look at your lab, or let's see what else is happening, because there's more happening than just like a woman is just anxious. Like we can't blame it
mhm,
on lack of faith. We can't blame it on, oh, you're not sleeping, you're not eating well. Or yeah,
yeah,
let's look at the age and everything else that's happening, because we are as beautiful as our bodies are. We are complex human beings.
yeah,
We're not just bodies. We are human beings. We have soul, and we have all these things that we have to address. And it's like, yes, let's go back to basics.
yeah, for sure.
So what's something a mom watching right now, um, what could they do today to start calming their nervous system?
Kind of what I just said, which these
Mhm.
are not like fancy things. They're basic. But again, that's how God created us, which is make sure that you're sleeping. Even with little kids, like, again, I have 5 little kids. Half the time I wake up and there's 2 to 3 in our bed with me. One of them's still nursing all night long. But like, I prioritize, I am in bed at usually 8 o'clock every single night,
Wow.
because that is like, I've always been somebody who just needs sleep. And not that I need to sleep, like, I'm not somebody who can take naps or anything, but like, sleep is so important. And even if you're not getting like 8 hours of like great REM or deep sleep, having that intention of being in bed, maybe reading a book, but falling asleep by 9, 9:30, and then waking up whenever the sun wakes up, that's huge. And then from there, you can go into all the circadian rhythm stuff, but I'm not going to get into that right now.
No, I was just
So
thinking
again,
that.
sleep is huge. Next one is water, and especially make sure it's really good quality water if you're able to. I know not everybody has access to like filtered water, but if you do have access to filtered mineral water, that's great. Um, Make sure that you are taking time every single day, multiple times a day, to rest. And again, rest does not mean that you have to lay down and fall asleep. Rest can mean sitting in silence for like 2 minutes. Rest can mean reading a book for 30 minutes. Rest can mean going outside and laying on the ground and looking up at the sky. Rest can mean playing soccer because you like playing soccer. Rest can mean going for a run because you like going for a run. Like, do things that are going to recharge your body every single day, multiple times a day. And again, I get it. I have a lot of little kids, and there's excuse after excuse that I could make, and I do make, but that's really key. I even had one mom, she had 9 kids, and
Wow.
her thing every day is she went outside at, I forget what times, but there were like 3 times a day. She went on her deck, she put her feet up, she looked up at the sky, she sat there for 10 minutes. Her kids knew, like, this is mom's time. And then she went back in and continued on with her day. So again, that's really important, is again making sure time to recharge and rest. Nutrition is huge, and not just what you're eating, but how you're eating it. So are you sitting? Are you actually chewing your food? Are you taking
inhaling your
time?
food?
Yes, exactly. And like making yourself a plate, not just eating leftovers. Moving your body, like, it's really basic stuff. You can get into the fancy red light therapy, the sauna, all this fun stuff, and that's all really fun, and it is very beneficial. But if you don't have access to those things, just do the basics: sleep, eat, drink water, move your body, laugh. Like, those 5 things alone, and obviously pray and spend time with the Lord, but those things alone are going to do wonders for your mind and for your nervous system.
Yeah, so like you talked about food and like, are you actually eating or chewing your food? So I know there's like in mainstream, there's a lot of people saying, drink this juice that has all these nutrients and this and that. I'm not a fan of that. I may get some negative comments about this, but my reasoning for it is your body is designed to work as a unit. So digestion starts in your mouth. You have to properly chew your food to get all the juices going and all the signals going to your gut. If you're just drinking the nutrients thinking it's healthy, it's basically just sugar that you're like shooting straight to your pancreas.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I know it's hard to sit and eat food, but like sitting and eating food without looking at your phone, without reading. And I love reading while I eat, so I'm like, I'm preaching to the choir here, but like sitting and eating is so valuable, not even just from a digestive standpoint, but also especially for your kids, from a developmental standpoint. We're getting them that jaw, and that elongated or that widened palate is going to be so good for their airways. So we could go a bunch of different directions talking about all of this stuff. But yeah, those five core things are the most important things.
It's not just for nourishment, it's community too. Because like when you sit together
sure.
as a family, that's like, that's the way to catch up. So like with us, we like to watch TV. We like movies. But the TV is off when we're having dinner. Because that's our time, like, how was your day? What happened today?
Yeah. And one thing we do that's we make it kind of fun too, where we actually we have like candles on our table, and we actually light our candles. They're beeswax candles, and they just smell so good. We turn off the lights to get them, like, to get the room a little bit darker. We started this during Advent a few years, or I guess like 7 years ago now, and just trying to see what it would be like to be like the Holy Family eating like that. And we just loved it because it makes you more present. It makes you quieter. And I don't know, it's just kind of fun too, to like be eating in silence, not silence, but eating in darkness. And it also is a really great way to get ready for bedtime as well, because with those lights are low, your brain starts to shift into that, like, okay, it's time to go to sleep. We're going to get sleepy now. So it's not only good for you, but it's also really good to get your kids kind of sleepy as well.
You're the second guest that I interviewed that actually said that. I think like
really?
Yes, I interviewed. Yeah, it was Kylie. on one of our interviews, she was saying, if I remember correctly, it could be like the electricity was off, so then they started
Oh,
laughing. They were having, and then like after that, her kids were like, "Let's
it's
just do
great.
that every time now." That was really great.
Yeah, it's really great. I highly recommend it.
Wow, awesome. So I know like it seems like we kind of skipped over all like the birth trauma stuff. So now I'm gonna go back to the birth trauma. So why do birth experiences leave such lasting imprints on women even years later?
Oh boy, this is a very loaded question. So, part of it is from a physiological perspective because we have that imprinting that happens because of the hormonal cascades and what's happening from a hormone, or like what's happening with our hormones. And so,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, again, just from a hormone perspective, whenever you have these large spikes and then rapid like decline of these different hormones, it's going to leave an imprint on your brain. And this imprint is either going to be very powerfully positive or very powerfully negative. And so that is super important just from like moving into postpartum. So this is why a lot of women have a really tough postpartum and they don't really understand why. And a lot of
Yeah.
it is around the birth itself. So again, if you're having trouble nursing, it likely is because there's something that happened within your birth that made things really hard to nurse, whether that be that you didn't get that golden hour or that your baby was taken away or that you were told that you had an inverted nipple and you need a nipple shield, whatever it is. Um, and then just from a spiritual perspective as well, where again, God created our bodies and he created our bodies really good. And I'm going to try not to go on a huge tangent here because I could totally talk about this for hours. But essentially, since about this late 60s, early 70s, there's been about a 700% increase in C-section rates, which is just wild. And the outcomes of those have not been any better necessarily. And the reason for that 700% increase, we can talk about all day long. But think about what that does to a woman's programming, again, subconsciously, that she might not even be aware of. Whenever she's hearing, my friend just had a C section, my sister had a C section, this person had a C section, all these people around me have epidurals, they have their birth was terrible. Like they hear all of these negative stories. So they go into birth thinking that it's a negative, painful, horrible experience. They
Mm-hmm.
don't go into birth thinking that God created their bodies really beautifully and that their bodies know how to do this. And that, yes, sometimes their bodies, like some babies need help, some moms need help, but a lot of the times, everything goes really well if we just kind of stay out of the way. And so, again, that's one of the biggest things is that a lot of women don't grow up understanding or knowing what a physiological birth looks like. And physiological just means that there's no interventions. And that no interventions means like they're in a place that they feel safe. They're not leaving that place to go somewhere else. There's not people coming in and out all the time. It's quiet, it's dark, things like that. There's no medication or anything like that. And so, again, a lot of women don't grow up seeing a normal physiological birth. And so there's the spiritual side that immediately tells them, again, subconsciously or consciously, that their bodies aren't good and that they don't know how to work properly and that they need help and that things aren't going to go well. And that really puts this fear of birth. And then again, I talked about how that affects postpartum, but it also affects their relationship with God because then they start to doubt his design.
Mm-hmm.
And they start to doubt that he created their body to be beautiful, to be good.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this, it's very multifaceted, but that's kind of a summary of everything.
Yeah, I mean, so like coming from a medical standpoint, we've come a long way as far as like birthing. Like it's almost like a long time ago, someone who's giving birth, it's like, I don't want to say a death sentence, but it's really dangerous. But now we have all these resources for safe births and, safe pregnancy. And like if things don't go as natural or as much as you want it, but you're okay, your baby's alive, you're healthy, then it's a blessing that we're able to take advantage of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And again, we do sort of miss the spiritual side of it too. And this
Hmm.
is what the one part of, unfortunately, the birth community kind of is in that, like, a lot of them are in that, like, new agey, like, kind of woo woo stage. And so
Mhm.
unfortunately there's not a lot of talk from a faith-filled perspective about how
Yes.
God did make our
Mhm.
bodies really good and how he does make birth work most of the time.
Uh-huh.
Just like he makes our digestion work most of the time. Obviously some people have issues, but most of the time everything goes pretty well if we just kind of do what we're supposed to do and eat what we're supposed to eat. And so again, there's not a lot of talk from that Christian perspective that our bodies are made good and that
Mhm.
birth isn't just an event. It really is this stepping into what it means to be a mother. It's surrendering your body. It's
Yeah.
doing something that is so hard, not because it's necessarily painful. I just want to say that because some people don't experience that, but because it's something that we can't control.
Mhm.
And because we can't control it, that can feel really scary and overwhelming. But that is, it's just another invitation to surrender everything up to God and to
Mhm.
allow him to take control of it. And obviously we have to
Mhm.
do our part, but it's
Yeah.
truly just up to him and allowing him to do what he does best, which is to use every experience to hopefully get
Yes.
us to heaven. So
Yeah, I love how you said birth is not just an event. And it starts like way before that. Like
oh
even
yeah.
before like, we get pregnant because it's
Mhm.
our responsibility to take care of ourselves because our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit. you know,
Yeah,
if we're
for
healthy,
sure.
we get, healthy pregnancies. I mean, granted, like you said, it doesn't go perfect. It doesn't go all the way. You can do the right things, but sometimes it is what it is.
Hmm.
And you can only do so much. So yes, surrendering to God and praying and having Him take care of what you cannot take care of.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So like people, I love your work. I think you're the first like birth trauma coach that I've met. I I work a lot with birth educators and like
Yeah.
everyone in the medical field, but like after the fact that so like this mom's suffering from, like you said, postpartum or gearing
Hmm.
for another pregnancy, but then there's these issues that we're not taking care of. So I'm glad you're available for for the rest of the women. Um,
Yeah, and just really quick with that too, a lot of women they struggle to find anybody to talk to about this
mhm,
because if they try to see maybe a therapist or a different practitioner, they might not understand birth. And so they go and they do the whole like tell you the story and like kind of go through it, but that practitioner might not understand what an ECV is or a Foley bulb or um, what transverse means or
mhm,
different things like that. And so having somebody who understands birth,
mhm,
because I've also been through essentially midwifery school,
mhm.
can be so helpful to be like, yes, your baby actually did really need support. And it can really take that guilt and that shame off of the woman
Yes.
because it's like, okay, like I didn't make a bad choice. Like this truly
Yep.
was needed and my baby needed this. Or
Mhm,
like I did a really good job in the circumstances that I had. You know what I
mhm.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad, you mentioned, I'm glad you understand that whole aspect of it. You just really understanding like physiologically what happens like when labor starts and like all the things that can go right and can go wrong
Yeah.
and taking that blame away from the mother that I just
Hmm.
didn't want to be in pain and I just went for it, or like they didn't give me enough time to think about things, or but when the baby comes, we're on their schedule. They decide to
Yeah.
come when they're coming.
Yeah. And that's where that like releasing control comes from. And
Hmm.
it's so scary to do that. But ultimately, we have to give up the control because
Hmm.
we can't force the baby. I mean, we
Yep.
can't force the baby to come when they're not ready. So,
Yep. Agree. So what resources are, like, if women want to find you or work with you, how can they find? I know you have a podcast and you have some programs.
yeah. So I have my podcast, The Discerning Mother, where we talk about all things health, wellness, faith, everything really. So you can find that podcast there. I also have my signature program, which is Restored by Grace. And this is a 12-week journey where we really help you walk through every aspect of a healing journey from a nervous system perspective, but really truly from a faith filled perspective as well. So we touch on what it means to we touch on forgiving yourself, forgiving God, forgiving others, Again, not that anybody did anything wrong, but our perception of those things. We talk about where Jesus was in your story and how that totally transforms everything. We talk about nutrition, hydration, sleep, movement, because again, we're truly a whole person, and we cannot just focus on one piece of it because we'll miss a whole piece of the puzzle. We have to think about it from the entire, all the perspective. And then from there, we really get into some identity work as well, because again, a lot of us women were raised to be people pleasers, or to not take up space, or to say yes to everything, or
Quiet. Don't
yes,
take the boat.
yeah, to not have feelings, or if you have feelings, don't express the feelings. And
Mhm.
so we really talk about the identity of like, who is your authentic self? Who does God want you to be? And how can you step into that person? So again, you're still so charitable and kind and beautiful, but you also are unapologetic and authoritative, and whatever God calls you to, because all of us are obviously different. So we get into all of that. And if you need just a beginning part two, I would really encourage you to download the free private podcast about becoming the woman that God had in mind. It's just a 5-part series where you can really get into more of this identity work. But yeah, Restored by Grace is my main program, and I'd love to see anybody in there.
Yeah, I love it. So the QR code is on the screen. So if anyone wants to work with Brigid, so just download, scan that QR code. It'll take you straight there, and I will provide the rest of the resources in the show notes. All right, and then anything else you want to share to our listeners?
I think we covered a lot today. We're kind of all over the place, which I love, and I know I can get on some tangents. So I think the biggest thing to remember is that God loves you, and He created you to be a saint. And so really just keep questioning, what are you doing in order to really step into that person that God has created you to be. And it's going to be hard, and it's going to be messy, and sometimes you might scream at God, and you might be angry, and you might wonder what He's doing, but ultimately every single thing that He's doing is for your good. And so just do every single thing that you can possible in order to trust that and to surrender to Him, and He'll just create so much good, beautiful fruits from it.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here today, and for the rest of our listeners, subscribe, and then I'll have more guests for you. We are all about faith, food, and function, all for women. All right,
Yeah,
until
thank you
next
so
time.
much.
Okay.